Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this morning's Tech Talk session. Guys, my name is Sean Frey, and I will be your organizer for this morning. Now, just before I do hand over to our panel of panelists, guys, there's a few little things I do want to get through with you, just to ensure that you do get the absolute utmost out of the session. Guys, this is a Q&A session, so please, any questions you have got, please put them into the questions tab, and they'll come through to me. This is a 30-minute session this morning, guys, so I will end the session off at latest 07:30. After the session, there will be a survey. Now, that survey will go ahead and pop up in your web browser. If you guys could just take the 30 seconds to go ahead and answer that for us, it will be greatly appreciated. Other than that, guys, you can put your PRB registration number in the survey at the end. That will just help us make sure that you do get your the CPD points do go to the right people. And if you have got more than one person sitting around a computer, guys, you have to put those CPD numbers in there for us. Don't worry, guys. That's it for my spiel. I am just going to, however, still say thank you very much to HeatTech for sponsoring these sessions and helping us bring them through to you guys, as well as IOPSA for facilitating them for us as well. Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panel, guys. Behind the scenes this morning, we have got Adrian Myberg, Herman Strauss, Marius van Wyk, Richard Bailey, and Mr. Steve Brown. Okay, gents, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you just to introduce yourselves, and then we can get into the first question. Steve?
Morning, Sean. Morning, everybody. Thank you very much for taking the time out. As I say, Steve Brown, Operations Manager. I'll just direct some of the questions to those that are on the panel this morning. Thank you very much for joining. Marius.
Good morning from Mossel Bay. We've got some lovely rain here, and welcome to the questions and answers this morning.
Richard.
Yes, I'm here. Thanks. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. Yeah.
Adrian. Adrian must be dancing in the rain. Herman.
Good morning, everybody. It's Herman Strauss here from the PRB Audit Department, all the way out of Centurion.
So we're all the way around the country.
All right, perfect. Okay, Adrian, it does look like your signal is just jumping around there a little bit. I'm just going to mute you until that's resolved a little bit. I think we can just get right into the first question. Right, the first question reads, how can I issue a COC on a replacement geyser when the client does not want to upgrade it to comply? It is a contradiction.
Richard?
Okay, so you get to a home and the geyser is to be replaced, and you observe 6 things like no brackets on surrounding pipe work, your PRV overflow pipe has got a backfall, and all these. Well, these are probably things that one should, in any event, include in your things, not extra items. So let's think of a couple of, things that'll cost some money. Perhaps it's I don't know, perhaps the tray is a bit dinged or whatever the case may be. So you are saying to the client, look, my price to replace the geyser is normally 7 grand, but when I get there, there might be 2 or 3 extra things that I see, and we will add to the price. So you get there, you say, yes, there are 2 or 3 things. The price now is going to be 9 grand to do this replacement because I'm obliged to do it up to standard. And the client says, no, I refuse. You will do it for the 7 grand you want. I haven't got any more money. All I want is a new geyser. So you can go away with your extras. And so the law allows for us to issue a certificate of compliance And part of that compliance can be that we have correctly and properly notified the client of the non-compliances in writing and in line with what the CPA requires us to do it. As any service provider, it needs to be understandable. It needs to describe the problem, and it needs to describe any possible what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of consequences of the problem. So as long as you've told the client that in writing and they've acknowledged it, and it's not a dire safety issue, that then forms the compliancy of those items, and you can then issue a COC. So you're allowed to issue the COC. As the reasons must be legitimate though. So you can't just do it without consulting the client. You know what I mean? So the client is the driver. He will or she will say, no, I hear that you want to do these things, but I don't want you to do them. I'm instructing you not to do them. And on the back of that, you can then issue that certificate, the notice of non-compliance.
And the other thing, Richard, is then the client takes responsibility for the installation, and you, the plumber, are now not tied to that because you followed your due diligence, and the responsibility falls back to the homeowner. And you, in the event of there ever being a problem, that certificate and your non-compliance will basically cover you in the event of there being a damage, loss to life, property, whatever, it would cover you. So the importance of that non-compliance is critical.
Yes, and if I can add on to that, remember that is why there's actually a space for non-compliance on the COC itself. It's always a good idea to give the customer how do I say, elaborate explanation of what you need to replace and why. But then when you lock the COC and when you give it to the homeowner, just give a short synopsis of the non-compliances that has been discussed with the homeowner on the COC itself. That way it's documented, it's legally, the risk is taken away from you and onto the customer.
Can I just
100%.
add something? And I'm gonna be quite brutal here. I think about 99% of the non-compliance notes that I come across on certificates of compliance, guys that have gone to do replacements, specifically insurance replacements. We understand that the insurers don't necessarily pay for betterment, and that includes a lot of things. So often stuff like lagging, etc., doesn't get done. But the problem that we have on a continuous basis with non-compliance or notices or notes on the COC is that they are cryptic. A layperson cannot understand what it means to say no isolating valve. They might know what an isolating valve is, but they don't know what the consequences are of not having one. They don't know what lagging is necessary. So they read there, no lagging, / unbalanced pressure. Now, to a lay person, that means nothing. So I think, Steve, guys, you'll agree that I think as auditors, we've been quite lenient on that in terms of, yes, the non-compliance has been issued, and for all intents and purposes, I suppose it's there. But I mean, isn't it time that we start to take cognizance of what the CPA requires? We need to explain to the homeowner so that they understand the principle of what's happening. So I think that's just worth mentioning here.
Yeah, but I think also, Richard, what we do find from the auditing department, and I think Herman, we'll all sort of go there, is that sometimes it's just a copy and paste. In some instances, the information on there might maybe pick up 3 items, but when the auditor actually goes there, there may be 5 or 6 items that haven't been noted. So the key thing is, like I've always said, that the non-compliance notice is critical, and your understanding of the standards and your obligations in terms of meeting the requirements of that, or that you need to understand those standards. So and deliver it in quite a manner, as you said, that the client is making an informed decision. I think that's the key thing, that you're making an informed decision where they understand the risks, etc., and you cover yourself. And unfortunately, as you say, Richard, a lot of the audits that we conduct, there may be 2 or 3 items of non-compliance that are glaring, but there are others that are just not noted. And again, through our auditing procedures, these are picked up, and then it becomes a challenge afterwards, going back to the plumber, going back to the consumer, etc., etc. So I think the key thing is spend quite a bit of time in terms of that non-compliance notice, ensure that you're covered, and then just don't do a copy and paste and list every non-compliance item that you can imagine. Loose pipes, this, that, the next thing. The supports, under the geyser in the roof space, and then find out that the geyser's on the wall. It's just that type of thing that we come across where the guys try and cover themselves and add every bit of non-compliance they can imagine. But when you get to site, the document and the installation, half of the points raised in terms of non-compliance now are not applicable to that installation. So again, having somebody just copy, click and paste, or copy and paste is not the answer.
All
Yeah,
right,
100%.
perfect. Okay, the next question reads, are 600 kPa geysers still fine to install? As of August 2018, the national regulator for compulsory specifications started regulating geysers for domestic use. As I see, Quickot has stopped making 600 kPa and Heattech still makes 600 kPa.
Herman?
Yes. Well, it's a very short answer. Yes. Don't know what else to say. No, yes, there's the regulations came out, but the regulations is all about energy efficiency. It's got nothing to do with the pressure rating of the geysers. There's all sorts of assumptions we can make on why there are fewer 600 kPa geysers being manufactured and supplied, and I'm going to refrain from getting into commercial things, but that's essentially commercial decisions that made the manufacturers choose to rather supply 400 kPa than 600 kPa. But by all means, a standard skater for that. There are components available to do the installations safe and fully legal, as long as the geyser has got the LOA from the NRCS. It's perfect.
I think also, Herman, thanks very much for that. I think also we had it yesterday. One of our auditors and KZN committee members raised it, in that I think one of the shortcomings and a lot of the complaints that I've been receiving is that where, for example, the client had a 600 kPa system before, and through the insurers, they've now gone down to the B rate and they put a 400 kPa in. The problem stems from not actually advising the consumer that there is going to be a difference in terms of the pressure, etc., etc. So invariably, when the guys have completed the work and everything else, the client comes home expecting certainly notices that there's a reduction in the pressure, etc., etc., and then it becomes a challenge for the plumber. So for me, and in my discussion with Barry yesterday, was that we need to, as the plumber, advise them of it beforehand and not after. And in some cases that I've been to, it's within the mine, because you actually go and put a gauge on the incoming line, and you find that they're not even getting 300 kPa through the municipal system. But it's a mindset of you've actually done me in. So I think it's just one of those points that we need to just check and make sure, and again, ensure that the client is aware of what they are getting from the insurance sector, that you're going down to 400 kPa, and just watch the differential in terms of the pressure, etc. I don't know if you want to agree, Richard.
I can add this, sorry.
Yeah, Marius.
I think what the plumber can also explain to the client is that the 600 kPa is not going to deliver a pressure of that. It is actually more just a pressure rating that the geyser can maintain if it is receiving 600 kPa. But that is just, as you said, Steve, it's a mindset. So to explain to the client that you won't necessarily get 600 kPa because the geyser can't generate a pressure. So it's generated by the municipal pressure, not the geyser itself.
Correct. Richard?
Yeah, on that, I've got nothing to add. I think it's all been said. Yeah.
All right, perfect. I'll get right on to the next question. It goes, because I do think there is an answer for you. It reads, this is more of a statement. I send an email along with an invoice to my client detailing / explaining what is non-compliant. However, on the COC, there is no space or complete explanation within to put on the point form.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if you go back to, yeah, Herman, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I can quickly answer that. And I think it touched on what was said earlier. We know that on the COC there's a block, there is some space, but you cannot get into all the details. So the best thing you as a plumber can do is send the full detail to the homeowner, but give a synopsis, give some summary on the COC itself. Whenever that's questioned, you can always bring up a copy of what you've sent to the homeowner. So on the COC you mentioned that there was a problem with the lagging and whatever else were there. But in the detail that you give to the homeowner, give that completely. At least then there's traceability. There's a full traceability. Whenever questioned, you can pull up all the records.
Or use the non-compliance notice that's been, utilized as a standard document, that you could add as an addendum to that in the event of it, being audited, or for that matter, leaving it with the client, so, and email that through, through in terms of your invoice or whatever you're doing. So there is, many ways of skinning the cat.
All right, perfect. The next question reads, is there a list of checks that need to be done when signing off a property that needs to be sold when doing a COC on an existing dwelling?
Yes.
Marius, you want to jump in? Well, Herman and Marius, if you can answer that one.
Yeah, I recently had one like that. It's actually quite an interesting one. The homeowner requested a COC because he has a terminal illness and he just wanted to get his home affairs in line. So he got a plumber, and the plumber then did a COC for the property. But this is not what the intent of the COC is for the sale of a property. So we have, from my IOPSA side, we have a home checklist which has been sent out to most of the members, and I'm not sure if it's available on our IOPSA website. But you cannot use a COC for the sale of a property unless you go and do the inspection and you find a lot of non-compliances, and the owner says to you, I want you to rectify this. So you rectify it, and your work that you do exceeds the 1,200 limit, then you are actually liable to issue a COC for the work that you've done. But if there's no work physically done, you cannot use a PRB COC for the sale of a property.
Herman?
There are different ways of doing that, and I have to disagree with Marius a little bit there. Remember, it is true that the PRB COC, you declare that the work done is according to the standards. So if you do a full audit, that is work that is done on the system. There's a little bit of a debate out there of what level of work needs to be done and whether a full audit qualifies that. The bottom line is you want to know what list to go through. Practically, the IOPSA list is a good checklist to go through. However, if you want to sign off a COC based on an inspection, that means your inspection needs to cover the whole standard. So your checklist is SANS 10252 Part 1, SANS 10252 Part 2, SANS 10254 at least. Don't go out, just do a quick thing, write out the COC easy. Remember what's going to happen. If you do that, that thing might be called up for an audit. The auditor will go out, and every single plumbing thing that might not be correct, you will be responsible and liable to fix that. So essentially, whatever I've answered and Marius answered is actually exactly the same. You want to go out, you effectively have to make sure that you make the system compliant so that you can issue a COC.
Yeah, and I think, Herman, just to jump in there, we've had that on many occasions where the guys have gone there, walked around the property, submitted the COC, it gets logged, gets pulled up for audit, auditor goes out to site, and he goes through exactly that, okay, all of the applicable standards, and he goes through and does that checklist. And then again, most of these old houses, there's a whole lot of non-compliance items, and then it just opens up a can of worms. So again, going back to what Marius was saying, in terms of what we've had as good practice, is basically taking the checklist, go through it, and you do that, and obviously it's time and it's a chargeable item. You then come up with all those items of non-compliance in terms of the checklist that you have. You make the client aware of those items, and then you upgrade and do, and then off you go. So same type of thing. We're all talking the same language.
I think what we must bear in mind there is that if you are going out there to do that, and if you are said to the client, listen, this is what I can do, make sure that you are very au fait with your standards, because you are going to be held liable, everything on that inspection once you have issued that COC. So you must be very clued up on your standards. So if it's not something that you really do as a norm, be careful of it. Don't go out there and do it, because it can come back and bite you as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Marius.
All right, perfect. I'll get into the next question. It reads, are galvanized drip trays legal for geyser roof installations?
Richard.
Yeah, they are, but there's a couple of provisos. So I think, please somebody jump in and help me to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's the City of Cape Town bylaws that require 2 coats of bituminous paint, or is that in the national standard somewhere? I can't remember which one, but somewhere it does require 2 coats of bituminous. Eh?
Can I bail you out quickly? Sans 10.252 part 1.
Is it part 1? Okay.
Yeah, part 1 refers to the bitumen paint and a piece of timber between the actual geyser feet and the tray itself to stop that galvanic action. You spot on there.
Yes, those are the 2 provisos that accompany the use of galvanized trays. So a piece of hardwood timber, and that, unfortunately, the word hardwood, if we are even that strict, it doesn't mean a knotty pine, treated knotty pine. It means something else. So even that, but look, and in real terms, yes, you can use them as long as you take sufficient precautions.
All right, 100%. I'll get into the next question.
Is it mandatory? Can I just something else has just sprung to mind. Adrian, you would be best to answer this. The connection to the waste pipe or the overflow pipe from a galvanized drip tray out is always a dodgy thing. And what they do there is they take a aangemaakte PVC flange with some silicon and pop rivets, and then they give you a 40mm PVC spigot. Now that is also questionable, I suppose. But I suppose the answer is just to take due diligence and to make sure that the thing's not going to leak. Okay, it's as simple as that, I guess.
All right, 100%. Then on to the next question. It reads, is it mandatory to do a drain camera inspection on a drain when you need to do a COC for an existing dwelling when you have never installed the below ground drainage?
Adrian.
Yes, the quick response to that would be to actually find out what the scenario is all about, because a drain trench or open trench inspection happens at installation stage or at municipal inspection stage. So putting a CCTV down an existing drain to sign in COC for work that you've not done just sounds wrong. I mean, there's a need for these things to be checked when the job gets done. But as far as COC is concerned, if we are going to go that route, then you'd have to clarify why you would want to do that, or why you'd want to issue a COC for a drain that you never installed.
I think I can add on to that. There's no rule that says you have to. Bottom line, if you are going to issue a COC, you will be held accountable for that. Make sure you do whatever you need to do to be able to take on the responsibility or the accountability.
I can maybe, I'm not sure if it's related to the same case or a similar case. We had an issue in East London where the building inspector insisted on a PRB COC for the simple reason that by the time these people wanted the house signed off, he'd only been there for 2 or 3 months. I think Stephen then went down there. The job was done about a year before that, so he never had an eye on the drain. He never had an open trench inspection or anything of the kind, and he actually insisted on a PRB COC because he never saw the drain. The plumber needed the thing signed off, so it became more of a covering his own behind by asking for the COC. But as far as an existing drain is concerned, if you are going to issue a COC, like Herman says, just make sure that you are 110% sure that you're signing off on something that actually works. Because if there's any, let's call it rainwater going in there, or there's any subsidence in the pipe, or there's any issues with the drain, and you've signed the COC, and an auditor comes along and he puts a torch and a mirror in there, or they do a quick pressure test over a section between manholes and the thing's leaking, you are going to be held liable. So I'd be very, very careful to sign on an existing drain.
All right, perfect. I'll go on to the next question. It reads, if I can ask a question about water meter COC, is there a specific SANS requirement to give an inspection before installation, such as a complex or flats?
Adrian?
The standard refers to, okay, let's start with the Water Services Act says that you, after 2001, every dwelling in separate occupation, sectional title unit, unit in an apartment block should be separately metered. If you do go along and you have to install water meters on these units, you'll find a lot of the older units. I'll give you a simple example like Polycop, or any other nasties on the system. Yes, you'd have to go through the whole system to make sure that you comply. I'm actually trying to get to that section in the standard while we speak. There's a SANS 10.252 Part 1. It's got very specific requirements with regards to the meter installations itself. And if you comply with those meter installations, then whatever was there in already, or whatever's there that you need to fix up, you need to clarify with the owner before you actually sign the COC on that. But yes, the COCs, there's a code for cold water installation, and then obviously the supply and the water meters, and that would fall under that.
All right, 100%. And then I've got multiple questions here, so I'm just going to join them into one. It reads, find it very costly and time demanding to achieve the 25 required CPD points per year, right? And then then some of the other questions read, are there any other free CPD opportunities that run during the year for the plumbers to attend?
I'll jump in there. Okay, I've been working very closely with Lorraine in terms of what they're doing for CPD. And I think, Sean, if we can just get that individual's contact details, because there are a multitude of ways in which to obtain your CPD points. Although 25 seem to be quite high, but if you go through and have a look at it, just in terms of your registration, you've got 2 points. Attending IOPSA meetings, which technically are free. Some of those meetings would carry 2 points, and depending on the technical content of what's going to be delivered, you could get an additional 2 points if the training material or the info being provided is CPD accredited. We have, as we are now, the tech talks, the toolbox talks on a Tuesday morning with the OHS are basically free. The tech talks this morning are free, although I think it's 0.25 points that come through. There are webinars that are done, freely, throughout. We'll talk about the business 101 that's going to be coming up shortly, so just watch out for that. The Plumbing Africa magazine, if you're mentoring an individual and a licensed apprentice or learner, if you've got the app plumber on your phone, so there's a multitude. So Sean, if we could just get that details and we can send all that info off. But once you start pulling them down, most cases we're already doing in our daily sort of workspace, we are, attending to CPD. We might not just know how to actually put it through.
All right, 100%. All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Guys, we do have quite a few more questions here. So I will be sending a chain email out later today with all of these questions on it. And then, guys, we will get back to you via email with regards to all of the questions we have not yet answered. Other than that, guys, panelists, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedules to come in and actually help and answer some of the questions from within the industry. And then audience, thank you very much for joining us. It is only because of you that we can actually do these sessions. I am going to go ahead and end the session off now. Unfortunately, I don't have time to let the panelists say their own goodbyes. So I'm going to say it for them, guys. I know that they enjoy doing these sessions, right? And I do know that they're more than happy to assist if you guys just send an email through. So guys, if you do come up with any more questions after the session, please feel free to email us. You can find my email all over the Articulated website, or simply it is support@articulated.co.za. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and end the session off now. Please remember the survey on the way out and enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Thanks so much again. Bye-bye.